How's it going?
It's been good. How are you?
Yeah, it's going great. Thank you for asking me. Are you studying like pre-calculus or the alignment of the planets? What are you studying right now?
I'm taking algebra 1.
Algebra 1, and you're what, in like the fourth grade or something like that?
Now I'm
Amazing.
in 7th.
Okay, okay. Amazing.
He's older.
You're an inspiration to us, Ureli. You're an inspiration.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Murta.
Oh, I'm good. I was just saying she's older. She's like, I'm not a fourth grader. I'm a seventh grader.
Well, I see our guest is here.
How are you?
How are you doing, sir? It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Same here.
Murta has said a lot of good things about you.
Oh, I appreciate it.
And we're looking forward to hearing a little bit about your story and a little bit about your background. So welcome to Hollywood AMAs or POW Chats.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing?
We're doing good.
All right.
So let's start it off by, if you don't mind telling us about your background. Tell us where you were raised, where you were born and raised, a little bit about your educational background growing up, junior high school, maybe elementary, junior high school.
All right. So good afternoon, or I guess good evening for me and good afternoon for everybody over there. Just to let you all know, I'm physically right now in Columbus, Ohio. So if you throw a dart in the middle of America, it's at a map of America is in the middle of America, right? So, but I was not raised in Ohio. I was raised in New Jersey, which is on the East Coast, obviously. And so I was raised in New Jersey in a small town called Passaic, New Jersey. I ended up leaving the New Jersey when I was around 17 years old. I had a very clear path in my mind that I eventually wanted to go into the military. So during junior high school, I decided to join what is known as the NJROTC. Who's in high school right now, or middle high school? Anybody? Show of hands? No, not yet. All right. So when you get to junior high school, there's a thing called ROTC, JROTC, which is essentially a way to get people kind of into a leadership role when they're in their younger years, and eventually it shapes you into going to the military. So I kind of knew I wanted to go into the military at some point when I was young. So at 17, I took my recruiter to my parents' house and I said, "Hey, Mom, Dad, guess what? I want to go into the military." And that's exactly what happened. I shipped out 17 years old. I went into the Marine Corps. I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps, traveled all around the world. My highlights of being in the Marine Corps were living in Moscow, Russia, and also Bosnia. So two very interesting countries. I did that for 6 years. Throughout those 6 years, I ended up accumulating some ranks. I went all the way up to sergeant. And when I was in Bosnia, I realized that at some point, I also wanted to go into college. So I ended up leaving the Marine Corps at the 6th year in 2004, and then went into to study diplomacy and international relations. Because one thing that I was doing when I was in Moscow and in Bosnia was essentially working with diplomats in the embassies of the United States of America. And I kind of had a rough idea of what I wanted to do. So I went ahead.
Yes. Sorry, can I interrupt you real quick? Can you explain to the kids what a diplomat is, or if any of the kids know what it is, and if you can explain it to the kiddos?
Sure. Does anybody know what a diplomat is? Rough guesses? No? All right, so go ahead. What's your name, sir? Alberto.
Alberto.
Is it math? Because the name sounds like it's like we're talking about math.
Math. So your question is being a diplomat, does it involve math? Is that your question? Well,
yeah, he heard diplomat.
No, so diplomat. So yes, I'm not gonna say no. It depends. I think math definitely is necessary for many jobs, including being a diplomat. But specifically, a diplomat, the form of diplomat that I was talking about was essentially working when you're representing the United States of America overseas. And instead of, you have the President of the United States in Washington, D.C., he or she cannot be everywhere at one time. So they have individuals living and working overseas. One person is the ambassador, and then the ambassador has diplomats kind of representing the United States of America in many different ways, to talk about the economy, to talk about the U.S. interests, and so on and so forth. But yes, math is potentially probably also necessary to be a diplomat. Does that answer your question about diplomat?
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So yes, I did that, and then so I went ahead and started to study diplomacy and international relations, and I did that at the Seton Hall University back in New Jersey. I ended up earning a bachelor's, a master's in diplomacy, and then I went ahead and got a second master's, basically an MBA, so a master's business administration. So that's pretty much my background in per se, my educational background, where I was born and where I was raised. What was the other question you asked me as far as my introduction?
No, that's great. That's great. Sorry.
Perfect.
But if you don't mind, can we fast forward and you can tell the kids what you do today, what it is that you do as a living, as for your living, and what your hobbies are?
Sure. Let's fast forward to great 2020, right? So right now I'm living in Columbus, Ohio. I am an entrepreneur, and we could get into that later.
Wait a second. Wait a second. We're gonna have to hit
Yeah.
that term too. Who knows what an entrepreneur is? Anybody? Lacey twins. Lacey sisters. I mean Cruz sisters. I don't know why I called you Lacey. Cruz sisters. I'm so sorry. Cruz sisters. What do you guys know what an entrepreneur is?
Yes, isn't it like a person that opens like a shop here and there, like who creates their own little business?
Not bad. Very good. Very
Okay.
good. Okay, Mr. Ramirez, it's all you.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was Candy or Casey, but I see Candy and Casey there. Yes, that's definitely part of the definition of being an entrepreneur. But definitely we could just go with that route. If you are a person that opens a business and manages a business, that could be a great definition to start off as far as being an entrepreneur. So I said that I'm an entrepreneur because I definitely did start a business 2.5 years ago, and ever since the pandemic hit, obviously we're all familiar with the pandemic because right now we're living in a very virtual world. Ever since then, I've also started to open up other different ventures. When I say ventures, I'm talking about projects, right? So those projects are, let me add on to your definition. Was it Candy or Casey? Just so I could.
You could just leave it as
Candy. Oh yeah.
Okay, I'll say. All right, so Candy. So what I was gonna say was monetizing. When you start to if you have an idea, and that idea you start to monetize that idea, meaning generating some revenue, some money. Then at that point you are owning a business, and at that point you are getting into an entrepreneurial point of view. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm an entrepreneur. I owned a risk management business. So essentially a business that helped other businesses manage their risks. Like basically think about like a security, if you have a school, as for example, some of the clients that I had were schools. So I went ahead and into the schools and had conversations with the superintendents, with the principals, and we had conversations on how can we better improve the safety and the security of the facility, the building, and also the students and also the teachers. So that's a business that I had.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I also asked you some of your hobbies. I think that's how we got in contact with you. Officer Alcaraz reached out to you and you were able to put together some stuff. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that and share that with our kids.
Yeah, so hobbies, man, I have a lot of those, but one of my biggest passions is running, exercising. Actually today before coming here, I knew I had to be here at 6 o'clock. So I went ahead and ran a 10K. So essentially 6.2 miles. I love doing it. Actually yesterday I I had a goal at the beginning of this pandemic to run 1,000 miles before 2020 ends. And
Wow.
yesterday, I actually ended up surpassing that 1,000 mile goal that I had for myself. So that's one passion that I have. Another passion that I have is traveling. So I've, because of when I left, what was that?
I was just clearing my throat. I'm sorry.
So I've traveled to over 20, more than 20 countries, and I've had a fantastic time. Another passion that I have is talking to people, and I'm glad that I'm here to actually talk to you, although it's virtually. Yeah, I'm not here to actually physically see you all. I love food. I love trying new things. So I think those are the top 5 things, the hobbies of mine right there.
That's where I think you and Officer Alcaraz share a bond. She likes talking too. We're trying to get her out of that specialty, trying to find other qualities that she might be good at.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, she enjoys that as well.
I think you run this. You do the most talking on this ever.
You also do some video stuff. I saw some video work you put together. You want to explain or take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I like to when I was talking to Officer Alcaraz about this, I want to show you all an idea. So I like to talk about these books even to adults. So if you have not read this book, I really highly recommend it. It's called What Do You Do With an Idea? And the reason why I'm actually bringing this book out to you, yes, it is a children's book. I do have children. I have a 12-year-old and a 4-year-old. But I find that, and I'm going to answer your question right now, Officer Lear. I find that when the pandemic hit, before the pandemic, I had a business, right, that I've mentioned before about the security company. And ever since the pandemic hit, things started to change for everybody, including my business. And at that point, I had a lot of equipment. I had, and I'm using them right now, by the way. I have the lights, I have this microphone, cameras. And I decided that another passion of mine is actually documenting and traveling, right? So I like documentaries. So I started to document a lot of the things that I would do on a normal basis. So have you heard of vlogs before? Right? So vlogs, and so that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm essentially creating, I had an idea, and with that idea, I just ran with it. And I said, you know what, I was recording for my clients, but now I want to record and try to see what can I do with a camera and the power of actually communicating and talking to people. So yes, I do record, I do editing, I do a lot of production. It takes a lot of time and dedication to do that. But I know that I was supposed to talk to you all about some words of wisdoms. So I think that's one of them right there, that if you have an idea, don't be afraid to follow it through. The point of this book, if you haven't read it, is that if you have an idea, you may not know where it may lead, but every single step that you take is going to essentially take you to a different, obviously, to the next step, right? So that's kind of what I've done with the video production. I just literally just launched myself into it, and at some points around the way, I did end up learning because of the failures that I had. So don't be afraid of failure. That's another words of wisdom as well. Don't be afraid of failure, because if you fail once and you learn from that mistake, that's amazing. That's exactly what the point of another book that I'll show you later. So hopefully that answers your question, Officer Lear, about the videos.
That's awesome. That is awesome. To allow you to plug yourself a little bit, maybe any of your videos on Instagram or YouTube or anything that our kids can follow. I think our kids are social savvy, so they might be able to look you up there.
All right. So your question is, are any other videos can they follow? Yeah. I have videos on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. I am a late bloomer on TikTok. I actually started doing TikTok last week. I just dived right into it. But the point of my videos are essentially 2 things. Number one, I want to motivate people and inspire people as well. So I want to motivate people to actually get up and exercise a little bit. So in every single video that I have, I include me running in the video, just try to inspire people to get up and be active. And then I also talk about whatever's going on in the moment. So there are some videos there that I'm talking about voter registration as an example. I I just recently started another project where it's 40 different things that I've never done before. And one good friend of mine said, "Hey, why don't you get 40 people to register to vote?" I thought that was easy, but then he put a twist on there. He said, "No, I want you to focus on 40 people of color." So I'm Latino, you know. So he's like, "I want you to focus on people, Latinos, and also African Americans." I was like, I thought it was easy, and that is one of the toughest things that I've ever done. So I'm very blessed to have that opportunity. So that's another thing too on my videos that I don't know if you're interested, you could look at them and subscribe.
So do they just go under your last name under those different platforms? Go look up your name and they find those videos?
So yes, several of the platforms that has my full name. So I have Luis A. Ramirez and then official. I've noticed that there's a lot of Luis Ramirez out there. So to differentiate myself, I decided to put official on there. And then on YouTube, it's just my last name without the Z and then Lua. Again, there's a lot of me, Luis Ramirez, out there that took up my name. So.
Very cool. And we'll attach that to this video. So if any of the kids didn't write it down and want to look it up later, they'll be able to look at this video or look at the highlights and get that from there. So just to retract a little bit, you mentioned running. A lot of our kids are runners. Miguel Yuritsa, well, Maritza, not so much anymore. Miguel, the Cruz sisters. And I think we have a few more runners on here. What made you get into running, and what is some of the things that you do or tell yourself when you're getting a little tired, when you're coming up against the mile, I don't know, 9 or 10, and you got to keep on going? What are some of the things that help you get through that run?
Yeah, I was looking down there because I have all my medals. So I have a whole bunch of medals, and
Nice, very nice.
if I would have known you would have asked that question, I would have had things like well prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So what got me into running? I guess I was always a runner because when I was in junior high school, let's back up to when I was in junior high school. When I was in high school, I'm not gonna lie, I got suspended when I was in 6th grade. Kids don't get suspended.
Uh-oh.
But I got suspended.
We have to turn off the video now, sir. I'm sorry. We have to.
No, but I got suspended because I was being bullied. And I think I learned a valuable lesson that day that, you know, I did not plan this at all, but since we're talking about this, right? So I was a heavy kid when I was growing up. And I remember that I was getting bullied because of the way I looked, I guess, when I ran. And, you know, one thing led to another and I got suspended. I'm not gonna get into the details, but the point I'm trying to make is I was always active. I was always into sports, and I was never afraid to actually try out different sports. So to answer your question, I was always running because I was told to run, right? So when you're in high school, you're told to run to warm up or whatnot. Even in the Marine Corps, I was also told, hey, we're gonna run 3 miles. But I'm actually doing ultra marathons. Has anybody heard of ultra marathons at all, or marathons? So Alberto, what's an ultra marathon? I saw you raise your hand first.
It's a marathon where you have to run, like it's really far and you gotta run.
All right. So
Great answer. Great answer.
exactly. So Alberto, you're absolutely correct. So if you heard of 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons are, let's put some numbers into that, right? So when you hear of a 5K, that's 3 miles. When you hear of a 10K, that's 10 miles. Sorry, when you hear of a 10K, that's 6 miles. But when you hear of a marathon, that's 26.2 miles. So anything beyond 26.2 miles is an ultra marathon. So to answer Officer Lear's question, and when my daughter was born in 2008, she was born with a lot of health problems. She was born with heart issues and also with lung issues. And during that time, I was inspired by her to actually start running a lot more than I did before. So I started running because of me, really, or because of her. Nobody else told me, hey, go ahead and run. So it's very different than the other, what I mentioned before, when I was in junior high school and in the military, I was always told to run. But then when she was born, I decided to run on my own. And one thing led to another, and then I started doing 100-mile races, 200-mile races, 24-hour races, 72-hour races, and that's kind of how I started to accumulate all these little medals. And again, I have them all on the floor, but that's, you know, she inspired me to actually get running.
You know, the two medals you just showed us are two more medals than Officer Alcaraz has. So that's really impressive. And we, if we can, do you mind? A lot of our kids have gone through some type of bullying at school, whether they were the ones that suffered from it or possibly on the other end. Could you talk a little bit about the bullying, how it made you feel? What were some of the resources you used to help you to overcome that?
So back when I was in 6th grade. Yeah.
When you got suspended, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I in my head I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that.
No, you're good. You can explain it to the kids.
Yeah. So obviously, bullying is a very, to me, it's a very important topic because I don't like to be bullied, even as adults. I think adults get also bullied, but children, I know for sure I got bullied. That's why I decided to say that. But yeah, so I was in 6th grade and I was a little bit heavy, and essentially it was two kids that were always consistently bullying me. And I remember being vocal with the teachers, but nobody heard. Nobody, I guess, believed me. So some of the things that I did was essentially communicate as much as possible to adults. That way adults could start listening to you. And by the time that situation happened and I was sitting in front of the principal's office, luckily whoever the teachers that I was talking to, I didn't know this, but they were actually communicating to the principal what was going on. So when it was myself and the other two kids sitting there, I was not the only person that got suspended. All three of us got suspended. So when we got to the principal's office, you know, we got suspended, and then they walked out. My parents came in, and the principal told me that, you know, luckily there was documentation of this happening. So the resources that I guess to your point, speak up, please speak up. Don't be afraid to not speak up, because I think even in the, like I told you, the business that I was working with schools, even then I'm using what my experiences that I had before to try to help shape some more safety measures within the schools through bullying. And the number one piece is communication. If you don't communicate, I think that's one of the biggest flaws. And don't be afraid to actually speak out, because I know that you have a code of honor, or you don't want to snitch on somebody. At the end of the day, I think those two, the code of honor and the snitching, it just doesn't work out in the long run, from my perspective. That's why I decided to communicate as early as possible. And luckily, by the time I was sitting in the principal's office, yes, I got suspended equally as everybody else, but it could have been probably worse because of the actions that I took, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely it does. And as an officer, and I'm sure Officer Alcaraz can testify to this, that we hear a lot of stories from a lot of different juveniles, a lot of different youths in our community and they all say the same thing. They felt like they weren't being heard. Like they tried to express what was going on, whether it was physical or verbal bullying. They tried to express it to somebody and they felt like they weren't getting no answers or any results or any aid. So that bullying just continued and continued. And your word your word of wisdom, telling us to communicate, to get that, to express yourself as much as you can, is something that is really important, and hopefully the kids will understand that.
Can I show you something else? I didn't plan it out. Let me show you something else. Give me a second.
Absolutely. Alcaraz, did you see how I talked about the medals, you not having any, him having two? Did that offend you in any way? Did that seem like bullying at all?
Not at all. I just feel like you just like to hear your voice and you always like to talk down to people since you're so tall. It's okay, I'm a shorty, but I'm a lover. And I do things not for recognition, but for me, Officer Lear. You don't even run. We run.
Oh my
goodness. And I
goodness.
run, you don't run.
I don't want to embarrass you guys. That's why I don't run.
But one thing that I wanted to mention is the back to the bullying topic. So I wrote a book, what was it, 2 years ago, and the book is called Your Options: Proactive Thinking in an Uncertain World. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it talks about a lot about, it has case studies. So these case studies are, if you've never heard of the word case studies before, it's basically little book reports, I guess, that I've done on different individuals that have gone and committed some serious offenses throughout the United States. And you know, I'm tempted to say that a lot of those people that went ahead and did those incidents, they may have gotten bullied at some point during their life, and they may not have communicated. Again, I'm not talking in this book. I'm not talking about bullying at all. But since we're talking about that, there are, you know, things manifest, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that, number one, communicate to your parents, communicate to people close to you, because it's going to really help you out. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Absolutely. Could you hold up that book one more time?
Oh, sure.
Your Options: Proactive Thinking in an Uncertain World. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of authors, but to see that you've written more than one book is very, very impressive.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Very impressive. Miss Murta, you have anything? Wow, she's finally quiet. Man, we gotta document this. Let me allow some of the kids to ask questions. We normally allow them a chance to talk to our guests directly, and be prepared just for about anything. You never know what comes out of the mouth of babes. So we'll start with the Bautistas. This is, what countries have you visited?
What countries have I visited? All right, so can I also say what countries can I lived and visited? Yeah? All right, so I visited, I'll start off from the beginning. So Japan, Iwakuni, Japan. I lived there for 6 months. Okinawa, Japan as well was another one. Australia was another country I visited. Brisbane, Australia was another place I visited. Guam is a small island between Japan and Australia.
Very small.
Very small. So I spent a couple of days there, I think a week and a half there. Dominican Republic, my family is from Dominican Republic. I've obviously visited there. Puerto Rico as well. Puerto Rico is another.
Puerto Rico.
So I have family there as well. Colombia. Colombia is a very, do we have any Colombianos? So I visited Colombia as well. Cartagena, to be specific. Visited Mexico as well. Where else? Jamaica, Canada. I know. I think it was cities or countries that was asked.
It said countries, but I think it's the same.
All right, Russia was another country. Bosnia, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, United Kingdom, specifically London. Wow, where else? I think that's it for now.
You know, a quick story. When after I graduated from college, I went to play basketball in Europe, and my team was constructed of maybe 8 African Americans, and the rest were national players, white players. We went to Russia one time to play a game, and you know, I was always infatuated by Russia just because, you know, growing up and Ronald Reagan and just everything about Russia and Rocky. So when we get to the airport, we walk off, the 8 of us are, you know, just large brothers. We're walking through the airport and there's not another person of color in the whole airport, right? And there's like, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 people in the airport. And it looked as if, like, you know, you watch those movies and where the music cuts off and everybody's mouth drops to the floor. It felt like that. They all looked at us like, what are these doing here? And
Where was that?
This was in Russia. Yeah, this was in Russia. So and it looked like, all, you know, like Tupac said, all eyes on me. It felt like all eyes were, you know, peering in the back of our heads. And so anyway, funny story. But what about you? Did you notice a lot of people of ethnicity in Russia when you were there?
So yes, me and another great friend of mine at the time. We went out a lot, and we were pretty much the only black people walking around, right? At times. But actually there were a lot of individuals from Africa
Oh,
studying in Moscow,
very
which
nice.
which was very to me very nice because it added flavor, it added some diversity, to the to per se. Um,
Very nice.
so I do see another question here. Any tips on running faster, Andrea and Jose? So running faster. One thing, okay, so one thing that I take a lot of pride on is actually running like a turtle. So I know you heard the story about the hare and the turtle, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because to be able to do these type of races, you have to be very strategic. So I know that by the way, I'm also a running coach. So there's two philosophies in running. One is to actually run longer, and one is to run faster. So if you want to be a sprinter, there are some tips that you could definitely do to be a good sprinter. Um, I think one of those things is rest. You want to be able to rest. You need to stretch very well as well. You need to eat really healthy, and you need to also think strategically. So if you notice there, I'm not talking about how to actually execute your running form at all, because I think once you're actually running, if you have a running strategy, let's say you want to be like Usain Bolt, right? Do 100 meters or 200 meters. There's definitely a strategy to actually doing that, and you have to do that on the track. But the only way that Usain Bolt, again, I don't know Usain Bolt, so the only way that I assume that he got to where he was by being disciplined. So that's another tip too as well. You want to be disciplined in how you actually train. So you want to be disciplined, and that training involves resting, at least taking 1 or 2 days of rest. That way your body could recuperate. Uh, your nutrition is really, really critical, really, really important. I like to eat cakes. I'm not gonna lie. I like to eat cookies. I like to eat ice creams. I'm not gonna restrict myself, but I do take things with moderation, right? Meaning that I'm not gonna sit there and just breakfast, lunch, and dinner eat nothing but unnutritious food. I want to make sure that from the beginning that I wake up, I'm actually eating really, really good food. That way, it could give me enough energy to consistently execute on those running, and also stretching. Like I mentioned before, stretching it will avoid you getting injured. Um, and then from there, you could actually start creating a goal. What is it that you want to essentially? If I could ask you, Andrea and Jose, if you are running right, if you could type it in, if you are running right now, what distance are you running, and what do you want to improve on? Because I think that's going to allow me to answer that question a little bit better.
Yeah, I believe there's 2 running questions in there. I don't know if you saw the chats, but I believe there's 2 running
You
questions.
need tips on how to keep self-motivated, and are you the Flash?
That's Alberto, I bet you. I bet. That's Alberto.
Okay, Alberto, I'll answer that question real quick. No, I'm not the Flash, unfortunately. But here's what I have done. I have ran for, I believe it was 71 hours straight. And Flash.
That's like Officer Alcaraz when she talks. It's the same thing. 71 hours straight.
No, I got you beat. That's me eating. 70 hours straight. That's me. I'm your girl. I will do it.
That's your goal, huh?
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm bringing that up to Alberto's question is because in order to do this, it was a 10-mile loop in the mountain, and essentially takes a lot of discipline. And back to the question of Andrea, any tips on how to keep self-motivated? Yes, I think to be motivated, you just have to show up. That's one thing that I could visually see in that question, is that when I show up to these races that I'm talking to you about, I motivate myself way before I actually end up showing up. So the first thing that I do is that I create a goal of, okay, I have a vision, and in that vision, I want to know how can I execute it to the best of my ability. And let's just say that I sign up for a race, or let's just say that I want to start a new company, or let's just say I want to have a new working relationship, right? So Officer Lear and Officer Alcaraz right now, we have a working relationship, right? So in order to be able to be here and communicate, to you all, I kind of have the same flow. I want to make sure that I research what I'm doing. I just show up. I invest myself in whatever it is that I'm doing, and I always try to improve as much as possible throughout that same process, to be motivated throughout that. And also, I don't forget the reason why. So one of the biggest takeaways to that question is, why am I actually doing whatever it is that I'm doing? Because if you don't know your why, your reasoning, I think it's going to be difficult for you to keep getting self-motivated. But so why am I here today? Is because I was in your shoes before, and I wish I had somebody talking to me the way that I'm talking to you right now, right? Where, growing up in Passaic, New Jersey, like I mentioned before, it's a small community. I could have easily not left there and been doing different things, but I had a vision when I was young of traveling the world. That's all I knew. I wanted to travel the world. And that allowed me to essentially do what I told you before with this book, this Dr. Seuss book that I told you about. I love these Dr. Seuss books because they're touch into reality. I see some smiles. Maybe you have read this book, maybe you have not. But this book, I go to this book when I'm reading it to my child, and as I'm reading it to him, it kind of takes me back into when how can you be self-motivated to keep taking steps forward when you really don't know the path forward. And I think that could be a good book to actually read to understand a little bit more on that question. So let's see. We are training for the marathon. Ooh, who's that? Oh, Andrea. Okay, but we want to improve our time. Okay, so you're training to do 26 miles. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, our kids do the LA Marathon. They do the LA Marathon.
Your entire team is doing it.
Not all the kids on here, but the majority of the kids do.
Oh, okay. So all right. So now I understand the question. I thought it was more for sprinting, but yeah. So long distance. But we want to improve our time. Okay, so one thing that I told you about self-motivated research. I like to research a lot, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if you have done a marathon in the past, you want to research what you did in the past. So let's say you ran a marathon in 4 hours and 30 minutes, and you want to improve it by 30 minutes. First, you need to understand what you did before to know what you're going to do in the future, right? Number one. Number two, you want to also look at your current training plan, meaning how many miles how many miles are you running on a weekly basis, because that right there is going to determine how you're going to be performing on the day of. Also, you want to shock your body, and that shocking your body, I'm talking about if you're just running every single day, the same distance, the same route, the same pace, the same everything, eating the same, you're probably going to perform the same when come on game day. But if you think strategically, meaning that let's say you have a regular typical day of you have a short run or a long run, which you're consistently doing that, but you start introducing some other strategies into your run. So if you fartleks, have you heard of fartleks before? So fartleks could be where fartleks is a Swedish word for I think it's run happy or joy, run with joy, something like that. I'm forgetting right now. But when you do a fartlek, you go out with the intention of running for, like, let's say 40 minutes or an hour. But when you're running through the streets, as an example, if you're running on the streets or you're running on a track, you identify an object. Let's say you see a white car. You say, I'm going to run as fast as possible to that white car, and then walk from that white car to the next street light or something like that. And you do that for the entire 40 minutes or the entire 4 miles or whatever it is that you're doing it. But the reason why you're doing it is because it's going to actually bring in some endurance into your running. So you're going to start incorporating sprints where your heart rate is just going to pick up and then slow down. And that's going to help you when you go actually do the run on the marathon on race day. So a fartleks could be good. Also, speed training is also important as well, where you actually go and do 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters, and also 1,000 and also 1,600s. So I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out there, at least 1,600, 1,000, 800s, 400s, and 200s. And you do that once every single week. By the time that the marathon comes, your body is just gonna remember. It's all about muscle memory, right? So your body's gonna remember all the long runs, short runs, all the strategic little runs that you're doing along the way, and then you'll be able to perform and improve your time. But like I said, you want to rest, because if you don't rest and stretch along the way, it's going to be really, really important. Also, cross training is a very important part, where you want to make sure that you're cross training throughout the let's say you have 16 weeks before the LA Marathon. You want to include 16. You want to include one cross training every single week. And when I'm mentioning cross training, you want to do running specific cross training. So if you do basketball, that it's a physical activity, but it's not necessarily crossover to running, because you get injured, right? You get injured in any sport, but the cross training is going to help you rest, right? Because you want to rest and also cross train as well. So hopefully that answers your question. As far if I didn't answer the question, please let me know as far as with how can you improve your time. And
no, I think that was great. Can you see the chat?
I do.
I think there's some more. Okay, great.
I do. All right, so let me see. Bautista Perez,
Still there? Froze on my end.
I'm deceased. I think Melvin said that when I started talking about the long 71 mile that I ran. Actually, that's this one right here that I got. Okay, let's see. Alberto, I have another question. What's your other question, Alberto?
My question is if it's okay that because my dad has a vest that is kind of a little heavy. I'm not sure if it like me and my dad we wear that and we go running outside and we wear that, so then I get stronger and I how do you say run faster.
So yeah, so if I understand your question, Alberto, you're asking if you wear vests while you're training, is that going to help you while you're actually go running for the marathon?
Yeah.
I think it does, and here's the reason why: because you're actually including something heavier on your body that by the time you actually go run the marathon, you're getting stronger, your endurance is increasing. I don't have a vest myself, but I do have a baby carriage, and I do put my 55-pound son on there and I push him. So that's my cross training, Alberto. So that right there, Alberto, is a good cross training format that I was talking about before. And every time I carry my son, my 55-pound son, for like 6 miles, the next day I'm like flying. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I think it's that. It's just the strength training right there. Miguel and Yaritza, I do that when I run with my mom. Are you talking about the vest, Miguel and Yaritza?
No, I think they were talking about the intervals, the run slow, then run fast, then run.
Okay, got it. Got it. All right, fartlek, Swedish word for speed play. Yes, Officer Alcaraz, exactly.
I looked it up. That was it. I just wanted the kids to know.
Yeah, speed play. That's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I don't know if you read the other one about the. Go ahead.
Which one?
About another adventure or a job. If you were to create another job, what would it be?
I don't see that question here. But I guess the question is, if I were to create another job, what would it be?
Yeah, I think that's what is right wrong.
You know,
Maybe they sent it directly to that person or to you, because I don't have it.
Yeah, no. If you had another goal or another business idea, what would it be and why?
All right, so I'll make it public here. So I just recently turned 40 years old a couple of weeks ago, and in that process, I realized that, hey, I don't want any gifts. I don't want any birthday parties. I want to do 40 different things that I've never done before. Like I mentioned, one of the first things that one of my friends gave me was to get 40 people to register to vote. I thought that was so easy and simple. But during that process, I started to think about some of the things that I've gotten into ever since the pandemic, and things that I could potentially do. And one of those things, believe it or not, Officer Lear, was actually creating a company and creating a new company and trying to land the contract in the first 40 days of that business venture. I've never done it before, so I figured let me do it. So two ideas that I've come up with, and I guess I want to hear your thoughts on it, since you'll be my first, I guess, market research. Number one, I wanted to launch a digital marketing company. That's one thing that I thought about, since I've never really launched a digital media company. However, I have been doing it, and I have been kind of just tinkering with it. I said, why not try to see if I could do that and then help out other companies and businesses to improve on their marketing strategy, and also their filming and stuff like that. So that's one idea that I've been thinking about, and I may actually just do that just to see how it goes. But the other one that I started to think about is that I'm passionate about running. I'm passionate about motivating people and inspiring people. And I have been working on it to essentially launch on January 1st, 2001, a series of training plans where people could actually register and run virtually. For example, for example, they could say, hey, I want to run 1,000 miles in 2021, and you have the entire year to go ahead and run 1,000 miles. And the reason why I thought about that is because I recently, like I mentioned before, I just recently finished 1,000 miles since May 1st until yesterday. So it took me 165 days. So I figured, why not try to put that out there and see if other people are interested in actually running 1,000 miles, and then you'll get a medal. So I'm working on actually getting something like this. That way, if you run it, you get one of these things. Or you could actually do a marathon in 24 hours. That's something else that I did a couple of weeks ago. I ran a marathon in 24 hours, something very unconventional. It took me 24 hours because I was traveling while I was doing it. So that's another idea that I have. I just started to think about time frames, really. So I'm thinking about calling it the race against time. So you choose a time, you choose 24 hours, you choose 3 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, one whole year. And then within that 5 time frame, you get to choose how many miles you want to run, and then basically holding yourself accountable to do that.
That's an awesome idea. We are actually in the process of doing a run challenge throughout LAPD, not just the divisions not just the kids in our divisions, but their families as well. And we're doing it virtually. It's not an in-person run, it's a virtual run. So we were looking for different platforms or apps or sites to go on to get registered to do something like that. So that's a great idea. And I think once you get it up and running, would love to come and participate.
Oh, that would be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Officer Lear, you just pumped me up. I'm gonna push forward with that idea now.
Awesome. You motivated us so long, or for so long during this interview. Now I get to chance to return the favor to you. So I'm happy that you said that. You said that.
You know, if I could just interject on the running a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I believe it was in 2010, and I'm about to share something with you that I speak about this experience to very close friends of mine, or people that ask me directly, and I want to share this with you as a word of wisdom as far as failure is concerned. So I did say before, don't be afraid of failure, and don't be afraid to actually dive into something with passion. So back to the self-motivated question that I got before. So I think it was in 2010 that I ended up signing up for a race that's called the Great Lakes Endurance Run, GLEAR. And I signed up for 100 kilometers, 62 plus miles. I've never done it ever before. And that's something that is really, I'm I'm really proud of. I just kind of just, if I see something I like and I like it, I'm gonna try it out and taste it to see how it goes. And that's exactly what I did with this race. I'd never have done a 100K before, and I was doing really, really well, I think, until mile 50 something, where at mile 50 something it was really, really extremely hot, and I ended up fading face first. I was blacked out. I vomited all over the place. And the reason why I'm telling you this is I don't remember none of it, but there was people around me that were helping me up, cleaning up, and getting me up to the standing up. And that was the moment that there's this such thing called a DNF, did not finish, that you get in races. And I got a DNF, and that was the proudest DNF that I've ever gotten in my life. I got up more determined and more self-motivated to try it out again. And I signed up for another race. Instead of doing 100K, I said, I'm going for 100 miles. And I went from trying 62 miles and only doing 50 something to 3 or 4 months later, actually crossing the finish line 28 hours later with 100 miles under my belt. And again, I mentioned that because I think it's really important that you understand that failure is okay, but learn from those mistakes.
Very good. So solid. That's so solid. Like that a lot. You know, whenever we talk to our kids and we try to motivate them, we try to give them a little bit of mentoring. We talk about failures and how you can't let the failure define you or define who you're going to be. So for you to touch on the topic even more is hopefully driving that point home to our kids. So thank you for that. Really want to thank you for that. So we're coming up on the hour. We always like to get our guests out of here before an hour, or at an hour. Our kids got homework to do as well. So I know you dropped a lot of words of wisdom on us. But if you have another word of wisdom or a saying or a Bible verse, biblical verse that you that helped you persevere during childhood, during rough times, if you could share that with our kids and our audience, we'd really appreciate that.
Man, I think there's so many, but what can I cover in 2 minutes? So one thing is that could come to mind is relationships. I spoke about communicating, and I think, to me personally, I think if I have to pick one word that really is who I am, it's all about relationships. Extending your arm, shaking people's hands, looking people in the eye, and also just smiling. But one thing that Officer Lear mentioned was that him and I both share something where we were overseas. And one language that I guarantee you that wherever you find yourself in a very rough patch or in a very uncomfortable situation, whether it's with somebody that doesn't really speak your language, and both of you could probably speak English. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about de-escalating. So when so I received a lot of training on de-escalating techniques. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because as a person that believes in relationships and communicating and looking people in the eye, one thing that combines us all around the world, irrespective of where you are, the language that you know, or the community that you're raised in, is your smile. If you smile, it just de-escalates the tension so much that it will really, really help you out to be able to extend your hand, shake somebody's hand, and just say, hi, how are you? And then once you show that smile, it just really, really helps out. So I think that's one powerful experience that I've had living in communities that I'm probably the only person of color. And as soon as I smile and I just say, try to say hi in their language, or just say hi, it just defuses everything, and they are so receptive to a smile. I think that's the 1 minute word of wisdom that I could come up with right now.
So good. Shake somebody's hand, look somebody in the eye, and smile.
There you go, and smile.
Love that. Absolutely love that. It's been an absolute joy, an absolute pleasure to have you here today. Hopefully this won't be the last time we speak to you, talk to you, see your smiley face. Hopefully we'll see you a little bit more some often. And thank you again from the organization, from our program, from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for coming on today.
All right, hopefully I could see you all if the LA Marathon happens. Maybe I could go over there and do it with you all. Who knows?
You can cheer the kids on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Be good, everybody. See you.
So hopefully that was good.
That was great. That wasn't good. That was great.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Officer Alcaraz has your number, contact information. So I'm sure we'll stay in contact. Normally what we do with this is we post it on our YouTube channel. You know, you'll be seeing that soon, I would assume. You share it with your son, your wife, whatever. And again, I can't thank you enough for doing that. Really appreciate it.
I really do appreciate it myself. Thank you so much.
You have a good afternoon, and we'll be talking soon.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.